recording. Okay, so welcome everyone to class 55, Bible prophecy about Israel. We're in the incredible book of Revelation, the only book for which you receive a blessing for reading and studying. So let's dive right in for hopefully another action-packed class, because the subject is so incredible. So Monica, can you please start? We're going to go back and review the great whore. Monica, can you please read question 1 in English?
Okay. What type of things does the beast represent in the Bible?
Okay, so this isn't exactly on the great whore, but we want to clarify. So the beast in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, what does a beast often represent? So in the Old Testament, the beast, sorry, go ahead, Emily.
The Antichrist.
Okay, so that's, and so that's obviously in the New Testament. The beast, in particularly book of Revelation, is the Antichrist, so it's a man. So I asked what type of thing, not specifically, but what type of thing. Okay, so a man. And in the Old Testament, what type of thing does a beast often represent?
Roman Empire.
A empire. Okay, Roman Empire is one of them, exactly. Because you go all the way back to Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and you have various images of beasts, and they each represent a different empire in the future. So, and that means that perhaps the beast in the New Testament, it refers to Antichrist. Now, no longer talking about the type, but what specifically. So the man tends to be Antichrist, and the empire tends to be the revived Roman Empire. Okay, so question 2, Emily, can you read question 2 in English, please?
What type of things does the great whore represent?
Okay, so remember, what type of things, without saying specifically yet. So what do you think? So the great whore that we've been studying in this chapter so far, she represents what type of things?
Religious system.
Absolutely right. And there's one other. And the next verse contains the type of thing. A city. Okay. Okay, because here we go, and now Jude, can you please read Revelation 17:18 in English, please? Revelation 17:18.
Yes. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Very good. É a mulher que viste, é a grande cidade que reina sobre os reis da terra. Okay, so there it is. The Bible interprets itself. So the woman is also clarified here as the great city. So Monica, can you please read question 3 in English?
If the great whore is reading the beast, what does that imply?
Very good. So the verb, remember, look at that, R-I-D-I-N-G. You pronounce, if it was R-I-D-D, then it might be ridding, but it's one D, so the I is more open, so riding the beast.
Riding.
Okay, so what do you think? So here we are. Remember the image that chapter 17 creates, which astonishes John. John is like, I can't believe what I am seeing. And it's a woman, a great whore is riding the beast. What does that imply? So you have, okay, you have what does it imply that there's this great whore riding, or woman riding the beast? And in this case, it's not the Antichrist, it's like a physical beast. But what does it imply? What does a rider do to the ride?
A religious system controlling an empire.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you're going right specifically to the point, because what a writer normally is guiding, directing, and just as you say, so controlling. So in a sense, the empire is being led. It's being, maybe a lot of its great success is due to the writer at first, okay? But what happens, and we'll get to this next in chapter 18, riding on a beast is dangerous, right? You know, even a tame beast is not always safe. Riding on a wild, evil beast, like the Antichrist or the revived Roman Empire, is dangerous. And what happens in chapter 18? The wild beast is going to turn on the great whore and okay, so the beast is going to turn on the great whore and destroy her in chapter 18. So like, okay, so or something's interesting happening now, but we have some bad news coming for this great whore. And so Emily, can you please read question 4?
There appears to be 6 or more defining characteristics of the great city. What are some?
Okay, so here we're trying to organize things a little better. So we just reviewed, okay, so what are the several things that a beast can mean? What are the several things that the great whore represents? And one thing the great whore represents is a city. So now we want to be specific, like, okay, so the Bible is telling us that there are some defining characteristics of this city. And so can you think of any? There's one in the next verse. When you look at that.
It has seven mountains.
Absolutely right. And that's a big defining one. Okay, so let's go to Revelation 17:9. Can you read that for us in English, Jew? Revelation 17:9.
And here is the mind which has wisdom, the 7 heads and 7 mountains on which the woman sits.
Ok. Aqui o sentido, que tem sabedoria. As 7 cabeças são 7 montes sobre os quais a mulher está assentada. Okay, so that's interesting. That jumps out. Not every city has 7 hills or 7 mountains. So let's go to Monica. Can you please read question 5 in English?
What cities are known to have 7 hills or mountains?
Okay, do you remember? There's one close to home.
Rio.
Rio, okay, and what's the other one? In Europe? Yes, okay. So, and maybe there are others, but it's like Rio and Rome are known for having 7 hills. So the question is, why not Rio? Right? Why, you know, Rio has 7 hills, so maybe it is the great whore. Well, because there are other defining characteristics, and Rio doesn't seem to so Rio has one defining characteristic that is true or compatible. It has 7 hills. But as we'll see in the other ones, well, lucky Rio, lucky Brazil, Rio is out of the contest. Okay, so let's go now to, we'll see some other characteristics. So, Ju, can you please read Revelation 17:1 in English? Revelation 17:1.
And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, say unto me, Come hither, I will show unto the judgment of the great whore that sit upon many waters.
Very good. That word T-H-E-E, particularly with two E's, you can like the, right? So so it's obviously it's an open E with two vowels in a row. So the. It's not a very common word today, but it's a good word. Okay, so e veio dos 7 anjos que tinha umas 7 taças e falou comigo, dizendo-me, vem, mostrar-te aí a condenação da grande prostituta que está assentada sobre muitas águas. Okay, so let's go on to, so Monica, can you please read question 7 in English?
Okay. What do many waters represent?
Okay, so who remembers? So we're reviewing some material we've seen before, but we're now okay. So the city, it sitteth, or the great whore sitteth upon many waters. But what does many waters represent?
Nations. No?
Nations.
Absolutely right. You remembered correctly. Okay, so many nations. And so let's read Revelation 17:15. And Emily, can you please read Revelation 17:15 in English?
And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
Just he saith. It's an old English word, so it's not so common. But you said almost saith, but no, it's saith. In this case, the vowels are separated. Okay, and let's see. I think I have it here. So we go quickly. I'm going. E disse-me, as águas que viste, onde se assentada a prostituta, são povos e multidões e nações e línguas. Okay, so there's lots of things there, but it makes it sound like this great city, this great whore is sitting, controlling many nations, i.e. all of them. Okay, this sounds like a lot. All right, so then we go, so Jude, can you please read question 8 in English?
How does the great whore sit nominate all nations?
Okay, so what do you think? How does the great whore city dominate all nations? Well, the answer might be in the next verse.
Kings? Kings?
Absolutely. So it looks like she gets a whole bunch of kings or a bunch of world leaders to join her. So Monica, can you please read Revelation 17, verse 2, the first part, Revelation chapter 17, verse 2.
With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication.
Absolutely right. Com a qual fornicaram os reis da terra. So there we are. So this great whore, this city, this religious system, it dominates all nations with the help of a lot of leaders. But then and how does this do this? Well, we're going to see. It seems as though it does this astonishing great whore by fornicating with the kings. So let's look at question, or rather, yes, question 9 in English. Emily, if you could please read that in English.
What kind of fornication is this?
Okay, so what do you think? Remember, the Bible has a lot of, there's like some things are metaphorical, others are literal. What do you think in this case?
Spiritual.
Absolutely right. Okay, so that's exactly right, because it's a little bit difficult for a city or a religious system to physically fornicate. So this is highly likely it's talking spiritually. But now, if the great city is fornicating in a spiritual sense, it sounds like the city has spiritual pretensions. Okay, and that's important because then we're like, okay, so this great city, the great whore, it's committing fornication, and what kind of fornication? Spiritual fornication with the kings of the world. And that kind of implies what? That this city has spiritual pretensions. It's like saying, hey, I am a spiritual center. Now, and we'll see, maybe the reason why she's an adulterer is because she says she's a spiritual center and, a bride of Christ, and isn't. And therefore, it's adultery and fornication. But this is important. So this is one of the most important defining characteristics. So this great city has a major spiritual role. Now and let's think of other spiritual cities that are spiritual centers. Can you think of any? Okay, so we know Rome is on the list, right? So Rome is definitely a spiritual center. Where else?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem's on the list, absolutely. That's a spiritual center for Israel, and then many would say for many centuries, for the entire world, it was the spiritual center. Can you think of anywhere else? Let's go back in history. Where was a spiritual center where things went wrong very quickly?
The Old Testament.
Yes, it is in the Old Testament, but what city in the Old Testament where things went wrong? In a city that pretended to be the spiritual leader.
Babylon.
Absolutely right, Jew. Okay, so Babylon, it was the only city. But so, it's easy to be the spiritual center, but no, it had pretensions. Why did it build the tower? Because it was to be the center of humankind's spiritual idol worship and man-made religion to ascend physically to the heavens. Okay, so that was also, and then eventually the Tower of Babel would think that's where Babylon is. So Babylon, for a time, was a spiritual center. It had spiritual pretensions. But now you have to go back and think, well, okay, so Jerusalem, maybe Salt Lake City, right? In Utah, that's where the cult called Mormonism, or Church of the Latter-day Saints, is based. So maybe that is another spiritual, it's a city which is pretty much the spiritual center in that cult. But do any of those cities share the other characteristics? Rome does, but then no, Jerusalem doesn't have 7 hills, Babylon doesn't have 7 hills, and we'll go on and see some others. So let's go on to Jew. Can you please read question 10?
10. How can a city engage in fornication, adultery?
Okay, so we kind of hinted at this, but now remember, so it's a great whore, but it also is a city, and we're trying to define as best as we can what city is the Bible talking about. So how can a city engage in fornication, adultery? Spiritually speaking, I already hinted at it. Well, if it's a city which pretends to be, say, the bride of Christ, and then betrays, that's the definition of a whore, an adulterer, right? So it pretends to be married to Christ, and then it goes and it's fooling around with a bunch of kings. So, okay, so that's how a city can engage in fornication, adultery, because it's selling itself as the bride of Christ. It's selling itself as married and faithfully to Jesus Christ, our Savior. but it's fooling around with other things, specifically many worldly things. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. So we're now talking, it's a city where it's a spiritual center, but it's a false pretender. It's not an actual spirit. It's like a bad spiritual center. It's not the spiritual center it says it is. So let's go on to Monica. Can you please read Revelation 17:4 in English?
And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness,
Or filthiness.
filthiness, or her fornication.
Okay, very good. And it's stones and pearls. So just a little more longer than the pearls. And filthiness is probably a new word, but you think of it, if you heard the adjective for that is filthy.
Filth.
Okay, that's the adjective. And so this is the noun. And so the noun is like, okay, often you take an adjective and you add ness, like good, and then goodness, right? Kind, and then kindness. And so here it's the same thing. It took filthy and added ness. And so you pronounce it just like, the filthy is like the original adjective. So okay, I got that. E a mulher estava vestida de púrpura e de escarlata e adornada com ouro e pedras preciosas e pérolas, e tinha na sua mão cálice de ouro cheio de abominações e da imundícia da sua fornicação. Wow, that's another heavy Bible verse. Okay, so let's go. So Emily, can you please read in English question 11?
What defining characteristics does this image present?
Okay, so that's a heavy verse, but what stands out? Here's the image, this surprising image of a woman, but what stands out about her? What do you think?
Extravagance, not in a good way.
Exactly. So extravagant is a very good word for it. And extravagant is like great wealth.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Because here, look at that deck with gold and precious stones and pearls. Like, wow. And a golden cup. I mean, so this is like pure materialism. It's a lot of earthly wealth. And that's a pretty good, defining characteristic, right? So I guess Babylon doesn't really make it. Jerusalem, maybe, so Rio, sorry, no, so, okay. But there is a place called Rome, which has immense wealth, particularly in the Vatican. And anything else? So great wealth, extravagance. Yeah, it's, purple and scarlet. So there's a couple of colors. And remember, the Lord repeated the color scarlet twice in this chapter. So it's not, not just by coincidence. God doesn't, no word is by coincidence. Every word is important, but here it's been repeated. So, okay, I should pay attention. And we won't go back to the image, but purple and scarlet happen to be colors that is used by one cult, major cult with 1 billion followers, and that cult is called Catholicism. So let's go to Revelation 17:5, and we're going to be finishing up the review, which I hope is tying together. So we're looking at all these defining characteristics. So Jude, can you please read Revelation 17:5?
And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
Okay, thank you. E na sua testa estava escrito o nome mistério, a grande Babilônia, a mãe das prostrações e abominações da terra. Wow, one more heavy verse. So let's see. So don't worry. Revelation 20, it's going to need a lot nicer verses, okay? So patience. We're going to get to some of the most beautiful verses of the Bible, okay? So just hold on a little bit longer, all right? So, Monica, can you please read question 12 in English?
What is the significance of the name Mystery Babylon?
Okay, very good. Oh, and I did a typo there. It should be significance. Okay, significant is the adjective, significance is the noun. All right, so what do you think? So why did God choose to give a name to this great whore? All right, because on her forehead is written this, well, it's a very long name, all right? So Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, but this very first part of the name, Mystery Babylon, what's significant about that? Well, which of those two words is it more significant that it's a mystery, or Emily, were you about to say something?
No, I think it's strange that Babylon is defined as mystery.
Okay, well, and remember, it's there's actually a comma between these two.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. So for ease, we call her Mystery Babylon, but it's funny. The Bible is specific. It's like Mystery Babylon, and goes on with or Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. So all that is part of her name. But what I want to suggest is that, okay, mystery. Yeah, we know what mystery means. That there's something particularly in the Old Testament which is then revealed in the New Testament. So yeah. She's been revealed. We're in the book of Revelation. So she's revealed. But Babylon, so why did God choose to call her Babylon? Well, maybe that's significant because of it's a system. Remember now, the great whore is a city and a religious system, and its roots come from where? The Tower of Babel. Yeah. Okay, so this religious system has its first manifestation, the type. The Old Testament has many types for things that then come to fruition. So images or types foreshadowing of something that then is revealed or manifested in the New Testament. And so here it's saying, okay, hey, you want to, know what Mystery Babylon is like, this great whore? Go back to the Tower of Babel. And I wanted to, we're not going to show an image of, well, it is there actually. But here is an image that I found since our last class. So this is an ad, and what's it picturing? Well, that's picturing the Tower of Babel, right? That looks familiar. We've seen that image more or less before. I show this because this is an ad by a major American corporation, a defense corporation called Lockheed. And innovation, the Tower of Babel, and systems integration. I just wanted to share with you. We've already seen how the European Parliament is patterned on the Tower of Babel, right? The building itself, and here we have a major corporation using the Tower of Babel as a good example of innovation. And here, system integration. So what this ad is getting at is it's undoing the Babel effect. Okay, so God divided everyone's language, or divided all the people on earth who were under Nimrod's rule at that time. He divided them, and he did that by dividing their languages. So they had no choice but to separate by language group. And this Lockheed is saying, hey, you know what? We can reverse that. we can integrate everything. Yeah, so I just want to say there you go. So you have a major corporation, you have the European Union, and these guys all think it's kind of cool how the Tower of Babel did. Right? Now, I want to point out, this is one of the extreme dangers of, but those people aren't stupid. They haven't, well, I guess the Tower of Babel, that's back in Genesis, that's a Bible, but they don't believe that Genesis is history. Okay, so one of the dangers of taking a Bible and, oh, well, that's a nice fairy tale, they're allegories and stuff like that. No, well, the allegory is bad. So even if you don't believe the Tower of Babel, if you say the Tower of Babel never existed, this is just a story, okay? And that makes it easier then to like go and believe, okay, the Tower of Babel, that's a nice fairy tale about what happened, but I like the idea, so I'm going to show how we're like, no, if you actually believe the Bible and you believe that Genesis is history, you're less likely to think of Tower of Babel as a good thing. Right? Right. So you got to go like, where are these people's heads? They're blind. They're blind in some ways. Okay, so let's move on now. So that was like a kind of review to try to wrap up to, okay, we have a bunch of defining characteristics. We're really narrowing in on Rome. And maybe next class we'll finally decide together, okay, I give up. It actually is Rome, but it's important. So let's go on. So now we're going to do Mystery Babylon Revealed. And so that is then, Emily, can you please read question A in English?
A mother of harlots implies a system creating many whores. What kinds?
Okay, so it's not a trick question. All right, because it's not like there's male whores and female whores. No, okay. What do you think when we ask, like, is it what is it a literal? Is it a metaphor? So what do you think? A mother of harlot implies a system creating many whores. What kinds of whores? Well, in the same way that we looked back and said, okay, a city can be fornicating literally, actually, or spiritually. But here we have a mother of harlots implies a system creating many whores. What kinds of whores? Maybe both. Okay, so spiritual, which would be many false brides. Okay, so it's a city that's creating many spiritual whores because it's full of people who say they're the bride of Christ, but they aren't really, they're false brides. And then perhaps actual whores. Okay, so real whores, human whores. So let's go to question B. So Ju, can you please read question B in English?
B. Can you think of a city which over history is fallen many whores?
Okay, now I don't want to pick on many whores, perfect. I don't want to pick on cariocas, but this might be one of those things where it kind of fits now.
Gaúcha, carioca.
No, because hey, we know, you go to Carnival or you see images, there's a lot of prostitution in Rio. Let's be honest, right? So okay, maybe now Rio now has two of the characteristics, but no. It's kind of over history. There actually is a place, and you have to know your history well, but where there are many, many whores. So it's kind of, it's sad, it's tragic, but let's go ahead. Which city do you think the correct answer is that actually had many whores? Rome. Okay. And we're going to see why. All right. When you think of Rome today, you don't think of many whores, okay? But historically, we're going to see a lot. Okay, so Monica, can you please read question C?
How could a city religion system do that?
Okay, so how could a city religious system do that? So what we're talking about is how can a city or a religious system create many actual horrors? Well, it's not, because it's not happening so much now. Well, maybe it is, we'll see. But I included some quotes. So let's go ahead and read through them. And we can go through slowly because we're not going to do the Portuguese for them. But then, Emily, can you please read the first paragraph quotation, which is quoting a Catholic historian quoted by David Hunt.
The fact is that priestly celibacy has hardly ever worked. In the view of some historians, it has probably done more harm to morals than any other institution in the West, including prostitution. The proof of the harm done by celibacy comes not from bigoted anti-Catholic sources. On the contrary, it includes papal and conciliar documents and letters of reforming saints.
Okay, and this is kind of a Catholic word, so it's conciliar. There's an extra I in there, so it's conciliar. Wow, so this is a Catholic historian. This is not some mean Protestant or mean evangelicals, some mean Bible study teacher who really hates Catholics. No one like, that is from a Catholic historian. And so what is the most important word in that paragraph? Which answers the question, how could a city or a religious system create so much prostitution?
Celibacy.
Yep, absolutely right. Okay. Is celibacy, is that clear? I don't even know. Is the word in Portuguese very similar?
Yeah.
Okay. So don't have to translate. So there you are. So it's enforced celibacy. And here I'm going to share a very, and I said at first, and we're going to get into more proof of how many whores and prostitutes historically there were in Rome. But what this historian is saying, that it perhaps was the most evil, harmful institution, worse than prostitution, was the impact of celibacy. And that's a big claim, okay? And this is not from a bigoted anti-Catholic source. This Catholic historian, as it says, the proof, where is the proof? From a bunch of papal documents. Okay, so it's not that, you don't have to go looking and guessing and making things up. You just look at the history itself from Catholics, and it proves, wow. And it's not just in the past, unfortunately. I'm going to share a sad, I don't know if you saw this. Here we are, October 5th, so last week. French report, 330,000 children victims of church sex abuse. Okay, so this is, you can read, so Paris, victims of abuse within France's Catholic Church, etc. 330,000 children were sexually abused within the Catholic Church. Now, it's over a long time. This huge, massive document here being handed over is to prove, all right, it's over 7 decades, but still 330,000 children. Now, let's stop that because that is just too depressing. Now, if that's the case in France, how much worse is it in Brazil? Okay, Brazil is the largest Catholic country in the world, right? So if in France, the French Catholic Church has documented 330,000 children sexually abused within the Catholic Church, it's like, oh, dear God, how horrible it must be. I mean, I don't know if it explains a lot, but that, just think of that. 1 million children in Brazil were sexually abused, and what that does to a country. But that is just horrifying. So why am I tying that together? Well, why are so many children sexually abused? Celibacy. Yeah. All right. So the, it's horrible, but priests then they're finding a sexual outlet in small boys mostly. All right, because it's just horrifying. Okay, so let's read a little bit more. Don't want to stay on this subject too long, but Jude, can you please read the second paragraph?
Yes. Evil of Shorts tells of holy convents with inmates who were nuns in name, but were really prostitutes.
Okay, so thank you. So this is another Catholic historian. This one's Peter de Rosa in a book called Vicars of Christ. And we actually, the place they're talking about is in France. And so it's actually, not all the time but this would be Chartres in French. But so in English, it's like, okay, evil is Chartres, but a little bit closer, like Chartres. And tells of whole convents. You said holy, but remember, holy is a different word. Holy is holy, so that's why it's important to pronounce whole like this, or people will mistake the two. Okay, so how you pronounce it, Jew, is closer to whole. That's holy. This one is whole. So okay, so where we are. It's a specific time, but it's saying whole convents, which were full of nuns in name, but they were all prostitutes. Ouch. And so let's go to the third one, and then we're done with this, thank God. So Monica, can you please read the third paragraph?
There were 6,800 registered prostitutes in Rome in
1490. Very good.
1490,
Yep.
not counting clandestine practitioners.
Very good.
In a population of some 19,000.
Excellent. Okay, so this is Will Durant, who's a secular. So he doesn't believe, he's not Catholic, he's not Protestant, but his incredible story of civilization is an amazing, huge story of civilization. This is only part 6. He wrote an incredible book, this big on just the Reformation period, and this is just before. So wait a sec. So he's saying, okay, in 1490, guys, Rome was only 90,000 people. That's the size of, San Juan del Rey. That's the size of Miami Beach. 90,000 people. 7,000 registered prostitutes. That's 8%. Okay. So, and that's registered. It says here that not counting clandestine prostitutes. So these are just the ones who have signed a paper, I guess, and say, yeah, I'm a prostitute. Okay. So the system, the religious system in Rome created a ton of actual prostitutes. And we won't go into all the horrible details, but I think I'll get to it maybe next class, but something like, the number of popes who were bastards. You know what a bastard is? It means that you don't have legal parents.
Yeah.
And so the popes were not supposed to marry or have sex. And yet, most of the popes were like bastard sons of other popes or other people, right? So there it is, it's like they couldn't have a normal family relation And so they were born out of marriage. They were born by sinful, fornication. And so a ton of popes were bastards. That's how prevalent, the prostitution was. Because obviously, if you're a pope and you have sex with a woman who's not your wife, she's a prostitute. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. Monica, can you please read question D, and we'll be finishing up soon.
What does the Bible say about celibacy?
Celibacy.
Celibacy.
Excellent. Okay. So, and remember, so this is, do Protestants, do evangelicals believe that, pastors need to be celibate?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So this is a strange Catholic tradition that is not in the Bible. Okay. So they did it to themselves. They created this system horribly evil, which one of these quotes just said, in all of the West, they created a system that was worse than creating the system of prostitution. So creating a system of celibates was the most evil thing, and that's what they did. But what does the Bible say about this? Well, let's go. So Emily, can you read 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 9? 1 Corinthians 7:9.
But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn.
Okay, it's kind of a funny verse, but it's not supposed to be. Okay, so who wants to go find that in Portuguese, please? So 1 Corinthians 7:9.
Caso, porém, não se dominem, que se casem, porque é melhor casar do que viver abrasado.
Okay, so there you are. So what does that say? So if they cannot, so who's speaking here? Do you remember? So who's writing 1 Corinthians? Paul. Okay, and you don't have to remember all of it, but Paul, remember, says, hey guys, if you can go celibate and dedicate your life entirely to the Lord, good, cool. But then he goes, but wait a sec, remember, God created the family. God created the institution of marriage. And so he's saying, and Paul was celibate. We believe he had no wife. But he said, so great, if you can follow me, that's cool. But, and then here it says, but if you cannot contain, so in other words, contain your passion, marry. For it is better to marry than to burn, right? To burn with what? To burn with passion. And so he's saying, hey guys, if you can follow me, that's good. But if you are like, you can't, your sexual urges, your passion are too strong, go marry. Because if you don't, you're going to do what we just saw. 330,000 children in France sexually abused because a cult religion created an institution of celibacy that does not exist in the Bible. It exists in the sense that Paul he said, hey, if you can stay celibate, that's great. But he didn't regulate it. He didn't mandate it. Just the opposite. He said, no, you can do this. That's good. Yeah.
Imagine in Rome, in Italy.
Exactly. And there you are. So I think what you're saying is those Italians, they have a lot of passion. Right? And so there you go. That's why Rome turned into a city full of prostitutes and prostitution, because maybe the Italians have a strong, what do we call it? Libido, to use a horrible Freudian term, right? So libido. Okay, so let's finish up. So Jude, can you please read question E in English?
Okay. Celibacy in the Catholic Church is a ban on what?
Okay, so celibacy in the Catholic Church is a ban on what? What does the celibacy rule and for priests, what does it ban?
Sex?
And that's what you would think.
Okay.
And that's why I asked it. It's actually marriage.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay. Uh-huh. And so, the Catholic rules are strange. And, so we all think, okay, that's sex. And it's actually marriage is the thing that a priest, no way, no Jose, as we say. Okay. So why, wait a second, what, so that is strange. So why did the Catholic Church consider marriage a problem for priests?
Against the family.
Okay, against the family. And again, I guess the justification is no, you want that man dedicated to the Lord and not, running after his wife or, trying to please his wife. He has children, so he's thinking about all this other stuff. Okay, but you know what and then the Jew, and then, so Monica, can you read question F?
Why would that be?
Okay, so why would the Catholic Church actually ban marriage? So you weren't. The Bible says you're not supposed to engage in fornication, in adultery, right? But the Catholic Church didn't ban sex for priests; it banned marriage. So obviously, you're not supposed to have sex, right? As because you're not. If any sex outside of marriage is fornication, and that's what the Bible says, but the Catholic Church focused on banning marriage. Well, there's another reason. If you create a family, you often have children, and what do you do, for your children before you die?
Oh, you give your inheritance to them.
Absolutely right.
Terrible.
There you are. Okay, Emily, you just found it. Okay, so you ban marriage because you don't want priests, and remember, they're getting this is like, the image of great wealth. They're making more and more money, and the Catholic Church wants all of that money to come back to the church. Okay, it doesn't want it to be so that was the reason. The reason is, don't you dare give that money away. We want that money. The Catholic Church is saying, don't think of giving that to like children. Forget about it. Or if you die, rich Catholic priest, you don't give it to a wife. Forget about it. You're giving it to us. We want this money back. Okay, so wow, this is horrifying. So let's finish up. So that was Monica. So Emily, can you please read Revelation 17:6 in English, Revelation chapter 17, verse 6 in English, and we're just going to end there and leave that hanging until next time.
And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. E vi que a mulher estava embriagada do sangue dos santos e do sangue das testemunhas de Jesus. E vendo-a eu, marvelei-me com grande admiração. Okay, so we're
Maravilhei-me.
say it again, sorry.
Maravilhei-me.
Maravilhei-me. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to discuss this more next class as we finish up the characteristics. But as you see, we have a list of 6, 7 characteristics of what defines this city, what defines this great whore. And we'll come back to this one next time. But wow, it's the woman, or this great city is drunken with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Okay, so it's a heavy subject. Patience. We're We're, there's help is on the way. Help is on the way. And actually, as I mentioned, next chapter, the great whore will be killed by the beast. So the wild beast will turn on the figure that was riding it and will kill it. So this great whore, who has been described in incredible, defined with all sorts of characteristics and with a lot of evil characteristics, will not last for long in biblical time. Okay, so we're going from chapter 17 and she's gone in chapter 18. But remember, the book of Revelation spends 2 chapters, whole chapters, not on the beast, but on the mystery Babylon, the great whore. And there has to be a reason for that. So any questions or comments? Okay, very good. I'm going to stop the recording. And here it is.